I don't know.
Like, yeah, so there is an exception and then you push into the service instead.
And it also can be done from a client, like a
What are they
web
called?
client.
I think I know this company. Sentry?
Yeah, that is.
You mentioned it.
Yeah, I probably should integrate this with my website too. So
It wasn't very expensive.
You can run yourself.
Open source.
Yeah, they have the hosted version, and you can run it yourself.
Okay.
And leave the Python support has to be proper instead.
Yeah, because most of these things are like,
Yeah.
we get one called Datadog, which
Oh yeah,
is
that's
very nice, but
service.
it's
Yeah.
really
Yeah, and then it's like a few where you like for up to 100 events a month it's free, and then it's enterprise pricing at $500. Which is like, yeah, no.
see, it's okay that my boss just paid me for the Friday because like the whole weekend I'm collecting so much links for him and it's probably okay. It's also, I mean, I also really I have VPNs and I have not yet moved my stuff, but I'm thinking about not doing the switch this weekend just because I don't have these things in place. I have no way to know that the server is down right now.
I think we already started 2 minutes ago.
Yeah,
Nice. So we are all talking about all things search.
Who did propose the session?
Free place or?
Who did propose the session?
Wasn't it Sebastian Lassen? Or?
It was not me.
No, the other Sebastian. It's nice that we can
Yes.
both say
I mean, you can also just start talking about stuff. But...
Should we go fetch him? Where is he?
I'm currently checking.
Who is already using search on their website or has something like search implemented?
Yeah, it depends on your
Definition
of search.
You have a box that goes to Google? Or?
No, I have, if you click on the hashtag, then you will get all the things that were tagged, and if you, I have the emoji search thingy as well. Like,
what?
if you go to setlog.nl/emoji, you get a page with all my emoji, like all the emoji I used.
You ever used? Okay.
Yeah, and then you can click through. It's just all Stone of Parents. This is the idea, but well, yeah, I want all posts with like this one.
Who wants to begin? And do we have a notes document? Etherpad.
Search.
Etherpad search. Search the ether.
But it's not yet really active.
We can make it active. There we go.
Well, yeah, what I would be interested in, I'm not in the topic. Basically, I proposed a session because I want to know how it could go. It's like in ActivityPub, for example, Mastodon lets you search the own instance, which is very quick, of course. And then you can search for hashtags, which is a bit limited, because what I plan to do is my thing I'm building has a natural language processing thing, and I'm deriving the facts of the text, and I wanted to build a search index for the facts and so on, and that is a bit more than a plain hashtag like that. And on the other side, what Mastodon does not allow you is to basically to search the public timeline, probably because it would be too slow, I guess, but I don't know, because then it would have to fetch all the instances, and the instances would have to search the user's posts if they are public.
I think more importantly, there is no one public timeline because every instance just exists in its own little island.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
usually, I think they planned something like a public timeline, and now there is a node that isn't capable of getting all of the data because of the space problem. Yeah. And now, what I thought about is if it has to be a search over the protocol. Now, at the moment, I don't know, Diaspora is thinking about implementing ActivityPub. They are discussing it actively in GitHub, and Solid is implementing ActivityPub. They have two issues before they will solve this, but this is all in the GitHub issues. Or if it would be better to use, I don't know, Thomson's Reuters API or DuckDuckGo or so, and to search the web, and then to look if it is ActivityPub or MicroPub or as a web mention endpoint, or what this page is capable, and connect this to my things. Because the public search is a public search, it will search any node. Basically.
Yeah, on the other hand, I know that at least some instances use robots.txt to block the search engines because they actually say they don't want this. I think they don't ship one by default. This has been proposed, but I think they didn't go that far. That the default is to not allow it. And there's also, I feel like there's in the Mastodon community, there's kind of like the community doesn't like ideas like that. So for instance, I think like with the hashtags search, that they had the integration that you can search hashtags across instances, and I think that feature got turned off again because the community
okay.
argued against it.
That would make sense why it returns up to 3 or 4 results, basically.
Yeah. I think they had it, and people basically argued that it makes it too much like Twitter. It makes it too easy to find stuff, and it makes it too easy to target people and stuff like that. And so
it makes it too easy to find people who you weren't otherwise connected to and have no relationship with, which is kind of like, it's kind of funny because that's like exactly the reason that people do use public hashtags on Twitter is to join these hashtag conversations.
Yeah, when a lot of people in the Mastodon community seem to assume then you pick the right instance for that,
right?
And ignore all the downsides of that.
Yeah.
Well, but I think that just a hashtag is a bit primitive because it has no context. It can have totally different meanings if you use a hashtag, and probably, I don't know, if you are more a left-wing person or Democrat, you don't want to find the right wings or so, and that wouldn't be solved by a hashtag, because that would be solved by my search index. But and then there are things like Elasticsearch or so, which you could.
I use Elasticsearch.
Okay.
So all of my posts on my site, I throw a few properties of the post into Elasticsearch, so it's the full content, all of the hashtags, and I believe the name of the post. I think that's it actually. But then Elasticsearch is kind of magic because then you can just go ask it for like what posts match these words, and then it'll very quickly returns the answer. But it's not meant. I mean, it is a service that you run on a day, like in a day. It's its own database, and I could index everything that I encounter on the internet. I could add that to Aperture, for example, so that Aperture has the ability to search through everything that's collected. But it's like a tool. It's a search database tool. It's not gonna like really It's a building block for building a distributed
But
search thing. It's
it's
not
not a
the,
complete search index on your own server.
Yeah.
Okay, that was what I
Yeah,
didn't
So-
understand.
It's basically the backend for it.
it's the
For
backend
search
for
I
engine.
see.
And
And
and then, for instance, what we use for the IndieWebChat, I think is also based on Elasticsearch.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a device wrote, which has its own crawler, which is crawling the chat archive as HTML, actually.
Was it website? Subscribe to website?
It does, yeah.
Okay, yeah, but, or the,
But I mean, it's just getting
it's still
notifications when there's
reading,
new content.
it's just
and it
reading
goes-
the HTML.
Yeah.
So I mean, I feel like making a search engine that covers all of Mastodon wouldn't be that difficult actually, because it's not that big and the instances by default give you through the API, at least their public timeline used. So
The thing is that I don't have any idea how big would a search index be in compared to the full text, for example.
I guess even the full text is manageable. But
I mean, it's definitely bigger because it is storing the text at the end of the day.
doesn't necessarily have to, but you would probably. It technically could just match terms to URLs, which are shorter, but yeah.
How big are, I feel like every time I hear people complaining about disk sizes for Mastodon, it's not because of the text and the number of posts, it's because of the images. Because it caches all of the avatars from all the other servers locally, and that's the thing that fills up the disk.
And all the media
And
that
all the
posted.
media, yeah. Those are the things that fill up the disk on the servers, not the posts themselves. So I suspect that, like, I don't know, 100 gigabytes or something is going to hold probably all the posts anyway, if you're just dealing with text. I can look at my stats on Aperture because I've been collecting posts for a long time now, several months of lots of different feeds.
But isn't there such a thing like a decentralized search index also?
There's various projects for that, but it has various different problems.
I think there's like a fundamental problem with the idea of a decentralized search is that, so like the web is decentralized, like everybody's web pages are not connected to each other. And Google came along and said, we want to search the entire web. So they crawl around all of the completely separate websites and build their own index. And they have probably the most comprehensive search index of the internet. If we wanted to do the same thing in a decentralized fashion, you kind of can't, because in order to do it, you need to centralize the database again. You can have multiple copies of the database where everybody hosts and contributes shared storage to the shared database, but it's still a search database. So like BitTorrent, for example, if you use BitTorrent to manage the files of the search index, and everybody can see these files around, but there's still like a entity, which is the search database, which everybody contributes to, which is like, I don't know if I would really say that's decentralized. It's like distributed.
It's interesting, yeah. And there's also projects like JC, something like that. They actually build a system where you can run your own instance, and I think it has a mode where it works as a proxy and just crawls everything you visit, or you can send it for targeted crawls. And I think they try to build some distributed hash table sharding thing that they actually search across multiple servers, but it's relatively well known for being horrible performance. And there's privacy concerns as well, because if you can trace back which instance found something, then you have kind of the assumption that that user used those sites,
Right.
which is also not necessarily what you want.
So I guess the question is like, what do you want out of a distributed search database? Like, what is the actual goal? Because that's not a goal itself. That's like some random combination of tech terms. Like, what is the actual goal there? Is it that you want your own authority of what goes into it? You want better redundancy? Do you want to make sure that there isn't a single company that controls what goes in and how things are prioritized? Like, those are actual goals of a search database. And like, there are plenty of problems with Google owning the search database for the web. But I don't think they're just saying, oh, we're going to now like split up use a shared distributed search database is going to solve those problems. Like, it's not going to solve them necessarily.
I mean, especially you kind of have to do stuff like that with some level of trust. Otherwise, I could just feed whatever I believe in the index. So, like, I
Right.
could just claim that all posts on Aaron's site are a copy of the Communist Manifesto, and
Right. So I guess we can start with like, we can go around like, what do you want out of a search engine? Right? Start with actual goals. Like, I want to be able to search things that I have seen online. I would like to be able to, if I have seen it at some point, I want to be able to find it again. And then I also, of course, want to find new things.
Yeah.
And finding new things is the trick, but that's like where it starts. And then how do I want to find those new things? I actually prefer to search within my social circle of what my friends know about.
Yeah.
And sure, there's privacy considerations, but that's, from my point of view, when I go and look for things in the real world, I start with asking people who I know closely.
Yeah.
Because they have the best knowledge of my situation, and I tend to hang out with people who I like, and I then figure out like the things they like. So that's usually the good place to start with finding stuff.
Yeah, which for instance, in a way could be similar to like how search across all of Mastodon would work. There's an instance can ask all its neighbor instances, which in the personal website case, like your site can ask all the people you follow, their site, if they have public search interfaces, you could ask them, hey, check everything that your user has in their index, and then combine that, and then probably maybe a second degree, and then it explodes. But
so there's an opportunity there to actually like build something, right? Where like my site does have search, so I can give that to you as an API.
Yeah.
So that if you wanted to search what my site knows about, as long as we agree on what that protocol looks like, then you can get my results.
I mean, there is even like this open search spec that developers use, which
hopefully
is XML, but that's the only bad thing about it.
Hopefully Elasticsearch has a plugin or something for it, so I don't have to write it again because Elasticsearch already has all my content. But that'd be cool because then I could write an interface where I can search my site, but then also go to all my friends' sites, and as long as I know how to use their probably open search API, aggregate those results in too.
Yeah.
And that sounds to me more like an actual distributed search, where there is no central database, even if the central database is distributed among everybody in the network. Because I don't actually want to participate in like the literal global timeline of everything. That's why Twitter broke, right? That's like why Twitter sucks, is because there is a single timeline and everybody's in it. And that's like what Mastodon's trying to avoid with the specialized instances, but then every time they do something like a global timeline, it breaks again.
Yeah.
Well, the global timeline basically works fine.
No, but it literally is the reason that people hate Twitter. Is because
if there were a global timeline, not what a Mastodon instance calls a global timeline. It's only its view of its corner of the web, basically. And I mean, it's typically like the first step. When an instance is banned from another one, it's hidden from the public timeline.
But it is called federated timeline.
Yeah.
And it is pretty much.
Yeah, but every time an instance gets big, like Mastodon.social, that global timeline is pretty much useless. Because again, it's reached now too many people. It's got too much in it.
Well, so if I would filter it for my interest, it would be useful, right?
Yeah, again.
Yeah, because
like
when you filter it, it's still small enough compared to Twitter that when you filter it, it's useful.
Yeah. Mastodon is at the size where you can probably actually process the entire Firehose yourself.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is that it names the federated timeline the whole known network.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is what it knows about the whole network.
It's everything the specific instance knows about. In the timeline are all the posts that are not private, that is in and are not banned by an admin that this instance knows about.
That it is ever seen. So everybody
anybody
on the instance follows.
Sorry, the thing is that it finds all instances.
No, it's anytime anybody. Right. So if you have an account on that instance, you can follow other instances, and then
you can follow people on other instances.
You can follow people on other instances, and then those people's posts that are delivered to this, and then this knows about them.
But only knows about the posts that people follow on that instance. And there's even the thing that some instances now have bots that artificially boost everything that happens on another instance to copy them together.
Right.
But that's an artificial mechanism
Super
that
hack,
basically simulates that.
Yeah.
But in the normal perspective, it really only sees posts that from people on the instance follow.
Can I ask a simple question?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't search profit from being as big as possible? The index of being as big as possible? I mean, social filters, okay, I get that, but isn't there search terms where universal index, like a huge company can offer with thousands of developers working on it, and not a indie project with 15 developers working on it? So the thing is, how can we get to a bigger index? And how is it, I don't know, plug into a CMS, I don't know, how can the index, the federated index, get bigger?
I think it's difficult, but I think you said it right, which is that search profits from that. So if profit is your goal, then you do need to see as much as you possibly can.
I mean, from a user perspective as well. So you talked about rediscovering the own stuff, pushing your own browser history into Elasticsearch, that's doable. But finding new stuff that branches out from this, that's a little more tricky.
Yeah.
Sure, I guess.
And that's certainly difficult, right? Like, sure. If I search a programming problem, I love a search engine that has indexed all of the overflow, and every GitHub.io blog with 10 posts that ever existed, because those tend to have the one answer you're looking for. That's not some. So yeah, those are different things. I think Jassy, which I mentioned, tried to build that in a distributed fashion, but again, they.
Sorry, how do you know how Yassi is spelled?
YACY. I think you told me about it in this.
I forgot how it is spelled.
You search.
Sorry.
I want to find, like you, I want to find stuff I've seen and half remember.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm keeping stuff in bookmarks, and I'm keeping stuff in my history, and I'm sending some stuff to Pinboard, and I half remember things, and links, even when I found them, get broken. And that, to me, is one kind of problem. And then the other problem is, what else do I know about this, having found something? And maybe there are things I know in my own search history which are not linked to it in any way. And maybe there are things my friends know as well. And maybe there are things people I don't know as well. And those kinds of connections are incredibly hard to even conceptualize. How would I take the content of something I know and look for stuff relevant to that? If it doesn't have keywords, maybe it has keywords. It's a sort of search for this, find something, search for something else, see where that takes you, which I find fascinating.
Yeah, that is fascinating, definitely. But it is a different thing, like compared to Twitter, where Twitter has become the number one source for media when it comes to real-time news. Right? The news who are consumed in the first, 20 minutes or so, mostly come from somebody from Twitter, although you won't get it because one writes it from the other newspaper and so on in the first 20 minutes. And that is fascinating for me too, because if I'm addicted, I'm a news junkie. Basically, that's probably different with all of us. But yeah.
But I mean, there's a sort of there's a different order of problem, which is making the links between things you know and things that other people know, which I think is a human activity. I don't know. I just don't know.
I mean, we also are kind of limited in that we can really only search for things by text. practically.
Oh, well, gosh,
And
yes.
as opposed
yes.
to like actual concept,
Mhm.
because tools just aren't good enough for that right now.
No, I mean, there's this new version of Envolt and that I've started using called the Archive, which is based on this very German idea of the Zettelkasten, but you have to make the links yourself. Nobody will make them for you. But it does throw up patterns. It starts to throw up patterns once you're very rigorous. You become your own search engine.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like the step above. From all these data, how do you then extract information from the raw input, which is in an entirely different problem level. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, I don't know. Actually, has anyone made a public Mastodon search engine? To go back to the start, because like it doesn't feel it would be that difficult actually.
In the end, you have two problems. The first problem is, what do you search for? So it's not what it's first. Even if the perfect search engine does exist and you don't know the keyword, you can access it. So why it is useful to have a huge index? So it might be a better idea to say, yeah, I know people. Those people are in the domain I'm searching for. Maybe let's look what those people have done. And then I come to the IndieWeb. So my site is connected to other sites, and it might be a useful function to have a standardized search resource. So they always said, my site, search keywords, and then you can go parallel through all of your friends' websites and see, okay, I have some kind of idea of machine learning. Has anybody done practical? So any tutorial machine search in any way I can ask further. So this would be a profit for me to have such a function and have a standardized URL.
That is what OpenSearch is.
Yeah.
So OpenSearch, when you type in, when a website supports it, the browser understands it. And then when you type in the URL, like aaronparecki.com space, it changes to search. And now whatever I type in here, when I hit go, it knows how to turn it into a search URL. Because the OpenSearch, so like if you do Wikipedia, oops, wikipedia.org. I thought Wikipedia supported it. They have a much better search of keyword. But when you type in a site that supports OpenSearch, then the browser then knows how to turn it into it. And I think OpenSearch also specifies a format for returning the results, which would be the next step of that, to be able to actually aggregate them back together. And we can totally do that. We could totally build that. Because like it's already there and it's pretty well supported.
Yeah. Then comes how do I search private content? Yeah. So this is not,
and that would be going back to the IndieAuth discussion we had earlier today of like how does this thing tell how does your site tell my site that that's an authenticated request that I can return private results?
And if you have a following page which lists the people you're interested in, can you then tell something like OpenSearch to search those as a priority, to search those people's websites?
Yeah. So the IndieWeb search engine could be a thing where it knows who you are, and then it can go to your following page, and then it can take all of the OpenSearch endpoints for all of your for everyone you're following, search those for the results, aggregate everything back together, and present you with a view. And then you could also take that one step further of going to all those people and finding all of their friends, which is that second degree thing, which would then start to give you quite a lot of information that you didn't know about at first, probably, going 2 degrees out. That sounds like actual distributed IndieWeb search to me, based on your friend graph and based on not making the assumption that there is a single database that you're searching.
So you need to build a whole lot of indexes for every user.
Yeah, it relies on every user having giving instructions of how to search that site. Yeah, it doesn't mean everybody has to build their own search engine, because you can offload that to a search service, like the way that the chat logs use the same software that CYSK's own site uses to search. They're just scoped to that particular database.
I mean, I guess there could also be a distributed aspect that, like, for kind of backup, that like if one side goes away, the rest of the network doesn't lose that because the bits are copied somewhere else. I mean, it's, again, like, I think just try something where it splits like, if you know, in web into small chunks, and like you copy chunks from others. So if I remember that right, each instance can have its own index, but it can also, through propagation, take over copies of the knowledge of others. But it doesn't copy the entire index, but it's like, I'm not sure what it's based, but it could be something like, I take all the e-domains that start with the letter A, I prefer to index those, and then you get,
yeah.
Like,
Well, what I do personally is writing a 4 to 6 sentence summary of the article, which is a base for my search index. It has main facts in the text, you know, the main like named entities, but also facts which are important for the text. But I'm not very confident. And Sven, what you said with the public search engine for Mastodon, wouldn't it be an option to keep track of the Mastodon instances? And if you search them, I mean, would it be slow to do 50 requests or so? How much instant, or there are much more instances?
yeah, I think it's around 2,000 instances,
So
but many of them are tiny.
Yeah, and that is impractical.
I mean, it depends really. Like for search, if you do it too much, get noticed at some point, and that might be a problem. But like, just then, because of the request, the instances with a lot of activity. Again, like for me, I'd even be curious if it's not possible to just collect everything as it happens and build your own index. Like how big that actually is, and I don't know. I just tried to Google, but I couldn't find any good numbers, like how many tools are people creating per hour, something like that. Because like, again, you can just follow an instance. So if you have a system that can discover instances, then you can just start following new posts, at least from all instances, and build an index out of that. And one could also imagine a system that splits that work up between different people and builds a combined public index for multiple scrapers. There might even, if you as long as you trust participants, it's not a big problem. And even if you don't trust them, there might be ways how you can do that with validation. Since for something like that, you have like clear structure. What is a post? What's the post content? So you could have other nodes verifying the work of others, and build like a system that more or less can detect if someone is feeding it crap input and throw them out. Kind of difficult.
Could work.
I don't want to say the word blockchain now, but distributed ledger. It is not the same. Just to make it clear.
I just checked OpenSearch, and it's two things. It's discovering the search endpoint,
yeah,
and it also is the response format, which is actually just RSS or Atom.
Ah, okay.
So it just uses those formats.
Okay.
So it's expected that the OpenSearch endpoint can return results in Atom format.
Yeah.
So building a search aggregator that searched a bunch of open searches and then pulled in the results would absolutely be possible.
Yeah.
Be a fun, not a small project, but a fun project.
Yeah.
I don't think my endpoint returns Atom, so I would update it. I think it only returns HTML results. The way mine works is it actually just returns the full posts that match the query instead of like a summary that you'd see in Google.
Yeah.
It's just returning a list of posts the same way that posts will be rendered if you were to view it, which is actually very convenient for
Yeah.
This-
So you probably could just redirect the search result to Granary.
Yeah, actually, and then it would be an atom. Yeah.
Blue software on top of blue software on top of blue software.
Yeah. And CYSKI's tool is it's open source and it's like totally possible to run it yourself. So you can actually just put up an instance, or someone could put up an instance and host a bunch of databases of different people's sites on it, and then you can just point your open search to it.
Yeah, and there's also a bunch of companies that run search as a service.
Yeah, right, totally.
Yeah. DuckDuckGo does it. I mean, you can use their API.
Can you use it to search?
Yeah,
Can you like feed it your own content to the
Not
index?
really. I don't.
Or is it just a web search?
No, it's just a web search.
Yeah, and I mean the DuckDuckGo doesn't even do the web search index themselves, so
Oh,
they use Yahoo Bing One.
Oh.
Yahoo Bing One.
Yeah, that might be.
The web search index, like all the special answers are their own magic, but the index is.
And you can't
Yahoo and
resell.
Bing.
You can't resell it. And I ask myself if I have a foundation and do open source software where everybody pays as much as he wants or not, and if it would be selling, you know. Selling is a very broad term.
User-funded search engine.
yeah.
So one of the companies that does search as a service is Algolia.
Oh yeah.
Right. Okay.
I think that is.
I'm not sure
similar to
what their
Thomson
pricing levels are like. Okay, there's some free for open source project thing which at least can index some stuff.
It starts with €100 or so each month, the usable packages. So
This is how they get.
but it's the same with all the Elasticsearch hosted
Yeah.
services.
Oh, is it Elasticsearch?
I think so, yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah, so apparently they have something that open source projects can use them for free, but you have to apply for that.
Ah, okay. So you probably couldn't convince them that you are an open source project.
Yeah. So they don't fit.
I just checked the database of Aperture. It is currently storing about 700,000 posts, and it's 2.4 gigabytes. So nothing.
Yeah.
That'll go a long way before it becomes a problem. Oh, and the index, that's not a search index, but there's another 100 megabytes of database column indexing on that, which is also nice and small. Yeah, it turns out text isn't actually that big,
Yeah.
which is nice.
And the search system might even be able to compress it. So even if it keeps a copy, it can keep pointers into compressed data. So, but again, storage is cheap enough nowadays. As long as it's text.
Yes, storage, but what or what's with the time you have to read all those hits? So you just get a search, you get 10 million results. Okay, do you read 10 million results?
Yeah, sure.
So it's all about it. You have to have big indexes, but you're using a very small fraction of that actually.
And then I guess also knowing how to prioritize the results,
Yeah.
which is the other question of this theoretical IndieWeb search engine.
Yeah.
Is do you prioritize by recently posted, or do you prioritize by social distance, since you would know the social distance
Yeah, sure.
combination?
Do you rank stuff? Do you rank it if you like if you're not doing some automated thing which, or like try to find like what's right now in the news. It's easy to automate, whereas of course, yeah.
That brings me to the
It puts
question.
results from a general search is difficult. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it better to have a huge index and general search, or would it be better doing good tagging? So in the end, you find more better results when they are tagged correctly.
Yeah.
This is how people search for pictures. So if you put if you earn your living with making pictures, you put very good text on them and you find them very, very clear.
The thing is that, well, yeah, the thing, it is very different to have a hashtag for a picture and for a political ongoing debate, you know. That is, if you have got promise on a picture, it is promise. But if you talk about promise, you can talk about a receipt and how to cook them, or you could talk about how, I don't know, how bad they are for your health or so. And this is also a similarity which is ranked in the indexes,
Yeah.
as well as the social
But
distances.
with tagging, I give it the key how it is meant. So if you have Trump on the picture, it can be a positive picture or a negative picture.
Yeah, the
And
thing
if
is,
I say positive on it, then
okay,
it's a positive
but
picture.
then I ask myself, why does Google analyze each picture and the content of each picture and the meaning of each picture without any hashtag and any surrounding? For example, if, to stay at the pommes example, if somebody posts a text on pommes and on the very same day, a friend from Brussels makes a picture, usually food picture, what he's eating, and Google would arrange his food picture exactly near the text about pommes, for example, without knowing anything else about the picture. They just analyzed it. And that is, by the way, that is open source, how Google compares it and says this is a house, this is a horse, or whatever. I don't know.
Image search.
For me, hashtags feel pretty primitive. It is enough to
It's a different problem. It's that when someone feels compelled to write a hashtag, that means something very different than any external observation of the thing, whether or not it's machine done or person done. And I think there's also still value in searching the content that someone wrote about the picture.
Of course it is,
right?
but
And it's useful in certain cases.
that is not the biggest problem,
Yeah.
you know. So yeah.
What's the state of extracting categories and hashtags from text?
Yeah, that is what I do. Exactly what I do.
But
there is
using machine learning or
no,
repetitions or
there is a project which I contributed to. It's called NLP Compromise, and that is without any learning and anything. That is the basics, just the basics. It says this is the noun of the sentence, this is a verb, and whatever. And then you can have you can extend it. I do look for named entities, and I do extract specifically questions, and I try to identify the questions by its category and what kind of question. There are about 12 different kinds of questions, closed question, and so on. And there are so many parameters. You could classify a text, and of course, the machine learning things are performing a bit better. But you've got this N3 bank index, and NLP compromise already reaches 89% of the pen prevent, and I think you can do the rest can be done manually, you know, and you should adjust it to your needs. That is might be very different, and I don't think it is that is too hard. That is basically, I don't know, 2 months of work or so.
I think a lot of that stuff also breaks down quickly when
NLP
you
or NLP?
NLP, natural language processing.
A lot of that stuff only works on well-formed sentences, and as soon as you start giving it short utterances like tweets or things with super slang or chat things, then it totally breaks down.
Definitely, that is why I maintain chat words hard-coded, and their meanings hard-coded for any chat and slang word, because I didn't found another solution. But then it would work. And, you have to look how often are these slang words used, and then you can track down the 90% or so to keep your index small, because the rest 10% will be very, very much things as as like, I don't know, less percent own the most of the world or so. That's basically the same.
That is the end of the session, and 10-minute break until the last session, final session. We should get up and stretch so that we don't all get completely.
Robots just tell
There's
you.
a trampoline. Has anybody seen the delphine trampoline nearby?
I saw the sign. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, it is like a trampoline.
Really?
on
Okay.
there.